Somos Berenice Flores y Sebastián Iguiluz y este es el podcast Entrepreneur de Keep It Up Show, un espacio creado por dos emprendedores en el que buscamos traer gente chingona e increíble que está constantemente cambiando la forma de ver y hacer las cosas. Cada martes, jueves y sábados podrás escuchar un nuevo episodio donde encontrar información clave que te ayude a impulsar tus ideas, tu empresa, pero sobre todo tus sueños. No importa qué te dediques, keep it up. Bienvenidos al episodio número 91 de The Keep It Up Show. Antes de empezar, si nos estás escuchando por YouTube, ayúdanos con un like, dándole clic a la campanita y suscribiéndote al canal. Y en Spotify, dándonos seguir. Hoy tenemos de invitado a Greg Head, CEO de Scaling Point y fundador de Gregslist. Greg tiene más de 30 años en la industria de las startups de software, donde ahora ayuda a startups en Arizona a hacer el salto a scaleups exitosas. Hablaremos con Greg sobre cómo es el ecosistema emprendedor estadounidense fuera de Silicon Valley, cómo vivió de primera mano el crecimiento de la industria del software y por qué el crecimiento no es obvio al principio.
Hola, muy buenas tardes y bienvenidos a otro episodio de The Keep It Up Show. Aquí Sebastián Iguiluz, cofundador y CEO de Entrepreneur, y estoy con Greg Head, CEO de Scaling Point y cofundador de Greglist. Y bueno, por el resto de la entrevista voy a hablar en inglés, perdonen mi inglés, pero bueno, Greg tiene una gran trayectoria en Estados Unidos. So, Greg, sorry for the introduction in Spanish, but we can...
I understood it. I can speak a little Spanish. I can understand better than I can speak, so I understood all of that.
Oh, that's intimidating.
Yeah.
So, Greg, first of all, you've been in the software industry for 30 years, and I understand that you got in there by kind of a lucky shot. So, can you tell us a little bit about the secret origin of how you started in this world?
Well, I'm a little bit older, so I did spend 30 years inside and running software businesses, starting in the late 1980s. I went to university and came back to my hometown in Chicago in the United States and didn't know what I wanted to do, like a lot of people. And a friend of mine said, hey, come work with me at this store that sells software. And back then, software was sold in stores, in boxes, right, with CDs and floppy disks and all of that. So that's how I started. The software store, which was national in the United States, was called Egghead Software. So my name, Greg Head, rhymed with Egghead, so that was pretty funny. But it was, I didn't know anything about software, anything about sales, anything about running a store. I'd worked, some store jobs, worked my way through college, but I fell in love with software and computers and all of that. So I'm not a programmer, but I sell and market and build software companies. And I guess I'm pretty technical, but I wasn't trying to be in the software business. The software business wasn't big or cool until the late 1990s. And then everybody wanted to be in it. And now it's super huge. But back then it was very small. Bill Gates and Steve Jobs used to come to the trade shows and, it wasn't that big of an industry yet. So that was kind of fun. I was lucky to start at the beginning of the software industry.
How did you live that? How was it to be inside the software industry as you saw it changing really quick from, as you said, a small industry that didn't grab so much attention to one of the biggest industries in the world and that has so many successful companies? So
over 30 years, you could say that's fast. Now, Google and Microsoft and everything is huge. But back then, in the late 80s, early 90s, it was a brand new industry. So we were all a little crazy, a little, we would say misfit. I don't know the word in Spanish for that, but we weren't going to be doctors and lawyers and anything. So we were doing this. And most people didn't believe this would be big. Most people didn't use computers, only technical people and all of that. So it wasn't obvious that this was going to be big. It, like any new thing, in the beginning, it didn't look obvious. We didn't say someday, the biggest companies in the world will be software companies and will be dominating and all of that, the stock market. So it was very entrepreneurial. It was very new. We were making it up. There wasn't blogs you could read about how to do it. All of this podcast and blog and books about entrepreneurship, maybe there was 5 books on entrepreneurship at the bookstore, 5 books on marketing, and you could read them, and none of them had anything to do with tech companies. So it was all very early and new. And for the first 5 years of my career, working for a retail store, joining a very, very, very small little software company in Dallas, where I live now, everybody said, my friends, family said, when are you going to get a real job? This isn't real. So in the beginning, things don't look obvious if you're early enough. So I was early enough, and I just fell in love with it and had fun and ignored everybody else. But it was a surprise when companies got big.
Okay.
Like the little 5-person company that made Quicken software, now QuickBooks, called Intuit, which is one of the very largest software companies, was 5-10 people. And when Microsoft wanted to buy them for $1 billion in 1994, that was like, wow, that's crazy. It's these people. So in any new market, if you are an innovator, there's a crazy period where it's not obvious. It doesn't always get big either, but it wasn't until 10, 15 years later that it was cool and everybody wanted to do it. Now everybody's trying to create a software business. So everybody's doing it.
And also, even if you're not making a software business, there are things that you guys in the software industry started, like methodologies like Scrum and Agile, that other companies from other sectors are copying because everyone wants to replicate your fast-growing model.
Yeah.
How do you feel about this?
There are, so the unique thing, the surprise to everybody, including many people in the software business, but software businesses way back when were very different than normal businesses. Normal businesses, you sold a product and you had a service, and it was, they're still a little different than a services business and so forth, but it was very strange to grow fast, to invest in research and coding, make software and then sell it, many times. And the markets kept getting bigger and bigger. And venture capital was new and all of that kind of thing. So the thing about software, it's some of the rules are a little different than other entrepreneurial businesses. But they just grow faster. So it's like a whole lifetime in 5 years. So you learn a lot about business, branding, products, distribution, service support, technology, systems, automation. It's just, you learn a lot really fast. And because you can grow a software business really big, which is hard to do if you're a lawyer, it's hard to do if you own a restaurant, a family restaurant, because software businesses can grow big and be global, right? You can get investor money to pay them back later, right? Okay. So that's a little different too. But, now there's a lot of businesses have technology in them, software technology, and a lot of normal businesses, use technology for what they do, whether you're a restaurant or whatever. So technology is part of everything, but there's still something unique about software companies that's pretty exciting.
Most of our audience is from Latin America, and for the most part, people in Latin America have a perception that the entrepreneurship ecosystem in USA is like the idea that they have from Silicon Valley, which has a lot of myths. But you are from Arizona, so I want to ask, how is the software industry in Arizona, and how is it different from the one in Silicon Valley?
Yeah, so Silicon Valley is huge and different in the technology world. So it is like Hollywood was to movies, right? Everybody's there and money and all the production and everything. Silicon Valley is still a rare and amazing place for creating companies. I've lived there, but it's not the only way to do it. And every year, more and more software companies start outside of Silicon Valley. And generally speaking, in Arizona or Dallas or Atlanta, generally speaking, they're a little bit different kind of software company. They're more steady growth, profitable, focused. They're not crazy, fireworks, fast growth kind of thing. There are the super growth companies outside of Silicon Valley, but if you're a normal software business or a regular business in Silicon Valley, everybody looks down on you, right? Because you're not creating the next Facebook or something like that. But there's over 500 software companies in Dallas, and there's over 500 software companies in Arizona on Gregslist.com, listo de Gregorio, and that I track and all of that. So if you look at the market value, Facebook is worth whatever, $800 billion or something. If you look at the value of technology companies, most of the highest valued companies are in Silicon Valley, Twitter, Facebook, all of that. Not Microsoft, or Amazon. But there's not as many super value, super big software companies elsewhere. So there's many ways to make a company. There's many ways to make a business. You don't have to be in software. It doesn't have to change the world. There's all kinds of flavors that entrepreneurs can choose to make a business and not have a job. So there's many ways to do it. There's probably 20 different styles of software companies.
Okay.
Facebook, starting an explosion and funding and all that on one side, and a small business with 1 or 2 employees that has customers and makes a living, and some, variations in between.
Okay. So
just like a law firm or a restaurant, there's several ways to do it.
Okay. So Greg, you've been in 3 startups, and you've been in the place where they're evolving from a startup to a scale-up. How is that change felt between the company, and how has your experience helped them create so much revenue?
Well, most entrepreneurs with ideas never get their business up to $1 million in revenue, right? Most ideas don't make it to a startup business with revenue, and most startups don't make it to be bigger companies. Everybody imagines you have an idea that's going to be big, but most don't make it to the next level, meaning 1 in 500 companies gets big, that starts or something like that. So there's very normal phases of life of a company that happen really fast, and it's kind of it's difficult to go through it in software companies. And so startup, for any entrepreneur, it's to go out and see if what you can build or what you can deliver can serve different customers. Can I build this for them? Can I build this for them? Right? And make a business out of it. So there's a lot of experimentation, and that kind of thing is described in Lean Startup, the book, and so forth. So getting a business started is very survival mode. You're just desperate to build something and sell something, and you're experimenting. So it's very experimental, open, right? You're trying all kinds of things and trying to see what works and running around. And so that's how all companies get to, their first $1 million. It's kind of made up, and it's, a lot of extra time and work, and, you're doing all kinds of things. So it's very disorderly, right? But a scaled up business that, in a software business, if you're 5 million in revenues US and $10 million, in revenue, it's a very different kind of business already, between 1 and 5 or 1 and 10. And it is a narrower focus of what you deliver. It's, I say, a factory of customers and, onboarding and service and employees, and there's a factory to it, right? You actually have to make that up and get the system. So it's very, very different. And in startup, you have an idea and you start building things and you go, but as you get bigger, you actually have to build the factory that serves all of this. And so one of the main differences between a startup and a scaled up version company, or a big company that's established, right, is that the startup is very disorderly and experimental, and the growth company is starting to be more orderly, more focused. Growth companies are always very focused. So if you show me any business that has a line, people waiting for a line at the stadium to go see a musician, a very popular restaurant, a software tool or an app like TikTok that is, very popular, I'll show you that it's very focused. It kind of does one thing for one audience. And so that's the challenge for entrepreneurs, is they start saying, I can do a lot of things and I have to survive, so I'm going to say yes to everything. But that as you scale, you actually have to say no and scale. So not every business is it needs to be a scaled business, right? Those are the businesses I work with in software. But you can make a small business that, of all kinds of things. I say it's like a restaurant. If you're a chef, if you can cook it and you can make any kind of food, right? Any food, right? Yeah. But if you make a restaurant, it's one kind of food in one place for one audience. That's a business. And so you make a factory out of that. So that's a big difference for an entrepreneur. We do the same in our careers, by the way, don't we? We start out trying a bunch of things, and if we're lucky, we kind of say we're the best at this one thing.
Okay. Greg, could you tell the audience a little bit more about what you do, both on Scaling Point and on Greghead?
Yeah, I have 2 businesses, and they're both in the middle of startup to, the factory, the scale. I have a consulting business called Scaling Point, so scalingpoint.com, where I have workshops and consulting for serious software entrepreneurs, founders that have companies between 1 and 5 million revenues, US dollars, where they're going from the startup to the scale. They're going through that process. And so I have a structured process to help them with their to create focus in their business, to create a clear message that the world can hear more simply, and to go through that scaling in their execution. So I'm a consultant, and I work with 3 or 4 companies at a time all over the US, and actually internationally too. So the Gregslist is started as one of my many experiments, a volunteer project to just track all of the software companies I knew in Phoenix, where I was helping founders as a mentor and advisor, just helping. And I was helping hundreds of founders. And people said, there aren't hundreds of software companies in Phoenix, they're all in Silicon Valley. And I said, no, there are hundreds here. And then I became a connector. Investors would say, who should I talk to? And job seekers, and I was connecting. And so finally I've just published my list, because everybody said, talk to Greg, he knows everybody, and there's a lot more going on there. So I published it and called it Gregslist, which is kind of funny, like Craigslist, but it's Gregslist. People would literally say that. can I have you, you share your list, or, all of that thing. So, and so now I moved to Dallas last year, and people said, there's not many software companies here. And I found 500 software companies. So I published Gregslist in Dallas. So it's used by, it's a free community resource that's used by investors, job seekers, local experts, tech leaders in a city, to connect with the founders, the crazy people who are creating these next companies. So all the founders I know are looking for investment or talent for their team or help from somebody locally, and everybody complains about that. So I just made a list so we could connect those people. So it's a free resource, and I have some sponsor partners that help with that, but me and my team do that, and it's not automated. We find companies, we get them on the list. You can't go to LinkedIn and say, show me all the B2B SaaS software companies in Phoenix or other tools. So it's used by thousands of people every month.
Okay. And in the work that you do, since you are saying that everyone wants to know who to talk with, have you worked for or with entrepreneurs from Latin America that are there or that want to start in Arizona?
I have not yet. I know plenty of people across Latin America, and I haven't yet. I've worked with people from Hungary, London, Singapore, Australia, not yet Canada, all over the US, but not so much. And so I work with tech software entrepreneurs, my focus, right? Tech software entrepreneurs. There's a structure to the game, just like there's a structure to music.
Okay.
The same 12 notes and 8 notes in a key that all of Western music is based on, right? But there's a million ways to play the music. So there's a structure to growing a fast growth, scalable company that's the same everywhere. There's different realities of culture and execution and so forth. So there are huge opportunities in software in any part of the world.
Have you noticed something different from the entrepreneurs from the other countries that you have worked with against the USA, or basically entrepreneurship is a global culture?
I don't think entrepreneurship is a universal thing. There's not everybody is an entrepreneur in Mexico City or Bogota or whatever. Not everybody is a mindset of creating something new.
Agreed.
And it's kind of crazy. It's kind of crazy. And the bigger your vision, the more crazy it looks, especially in the beginning, right? So every big company, Walmart, Amazon, Microsoft, looked totally crazy in the beginning. And everybody said, stop doing that 5 years. And then it looked obvious and everybody said, oh, it looks obvious. But in the beginning, it always looks crazy. So I think there are creative, self-driven, entrepreneurs in any culture. I don't think maybe there's 10% of most populations are, quote, entrepreneurial, want to do a new thing, right? Want to create something. Most people just want to have a job and have a good life and all of that thing. We're kind of crazy about that. So, but I do think there is something, in Americans in the US and in technology are very capitalistic, business oriented. We have a legal and business structure that's very amenable to it supports creating new companies. And so there is let's say, all of the entrepreneurs from Hungary, from Singapore, from London, were very connected, reading like you are, materials coming out of companies and blogs and everything from the US. So they were very connected to that. what looks normal in Silicon Valley looks crazy in Phoenix.
Okay.
And what looks crazy in Phoenix from a business, probably, normal in Phoenix from a tech company's perspective, probably looks crazy, in Buenos Aires, right?
Okay.
It's just not very normal. But it wasn't normal in Silicon Valley 50, 80 years ago. It's just normal now, right? So I think it can happen anywhere. So maybe that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. Has the software industry been affected at all due to the events from COVID 2020, or has it been an industry that didn't get so much of a blow as others?
Well, so all industries were affected in 2020 with COVID in the U.S. and it's different dimensions everywhere. It's affected everybody. It's a really big deal. It affected businesses. For software companies in the U.S., in general, it was a big positive boom time. Software technology has grown faster this year on the whole, and it's because of all the changes. Work from home, everything went more digital this year. Banking, work from home, collaboration, podcasts, Zoom, everything has gotten more digital this year. And companies that were slow to move to computers and digital and mobile experience and all that are moving fast. So I think it will accelerate outside the US, which tends to be slower moving with technology. But some sectors, so overall, it's a big year for tech. It's a boom year. Most CEOs I know say this is the best year we've ever had. We're growing fast. And we're not in our office. We're figuring out all this new stuff. But so software companies too, they can work from home. They can do it from anywhere. They're not like restaurants or airline, companies and others. So some sectors in software, if you sell to retail stores, your business was hurt. If you sell marketing event management for conferences, your business almost went away completely. And there's a few other things. Some medical management because hospitals were busy with other things. But like telehealth for, video doctor visits, best year ever, up 50%, or more. So it's very sector specific. If you have a fitness gym, you were hurt. If you made fitness equipment, it was your best year ever, right? So overall, it was a big year for software, biggest ever that I've seen since the year 2000, where it was a boom time for the internet and then the bust time and all of that. So like we're using Zoom right now, and they grew from their crazy company to a growth company, and then they became a publicly listed company. You can buy their stock at the stock market. And so they're almost $1 billion revenue. They doubled their projection for the year, doubled their revenues. Like that doesn't normally happen. So it's the reason that in the US, the stock market is still very high is because a lot of tech companies have had big years.
Greg, to start wrapping this up, every inviter of the Keep It Up show, we ask them 3 do's and 3 don'ts for entrepreneurs. Basically, 3 things that every entrepreneur has to do or should do, and 3 things that they should avoid at any cost. So what are your tips?
Well, the 3 do's for a just starting entrepreneur, right, is, believe that you can do it, do something. The world isn't organized for people to change it, and you're going to create change. So people will say, don't do it. And, just believe yourself. Solve a real problem for somebody. Okay. Nobody buys something because it's software. They buy something because it solves a really important problem for them. So find a problem worth solving. Let's see, third thing to do is experiment to try a bunch of things to find your focus, right? Survive long enough to find a focus that you can make a business out of. Every business has a very sharp focus to it that grows fast. So don't expect it to be easy or fast. Most entrepreneurs, it takes longer, and they try and try and try and try and try and try, and you know, there's those kind of stories are always there. So don't expect it to be easy or fast. Don't expect funding. A lot of people in software entrepreneurs say, well, what you do is you get funding and then you make a big company. Well, you actually have to make a company to get funding. And by the time you make a company, you realize that funding isn't necessarily the answer. So don't expect investors to be there. And, you know, find something that is important and will have a growing future. So at the beginning, I started at the beginning of the software industry, and I was lucky that it just grew so fast. So I followed the wave. So if you could find a wave, and it's not obvious. Like by the time the wave is obvious to everybody, there's 100 competitors and so forth. So you actually have to find a wave before it's a wave. You have to know something so well that you can know that this is coming before everybody does it. So you actually have to play that game, right? So those are a few things for everybody.
Perfect. Greg, if anyone wants to acquire your service or get in touch with you, how can they find you on social media or your companies?
Yeah. They can find me, the easiest way is on LinkedIn. That's where most entrepreneurs are finding and connecting with me. And if anybody who is hearing this wants to have a 30-minute call, I'd be happy to have a conversation with them at whatever stage of business they have, wherever they are. That's how Gregslist got started. I talked to 1,000 entrepreneurs, and so I do that all the time. Or on my website, greghead.com, GREGHEAD.com, will connect you to all of that.
Greg, I want to thank you so much for your time. And as we say on this program, keep it up.
Okay. Thank you, Sebastian.
Thank you.
Si te gustó el episodio de hoy, recuerda que puedes escucharnos en Spotify y YouTube, y para más herramientas de estos temas, estamos en Instagram y Facebook como @entrepreneur. Si quieres seguir a nuestro invitado de hoy, te dejamos en la caja de descripción sus redes sociales y datos de contacto. Gracias por escucharnos y nos vemos en el próximo episodio. Recuerda, keep it up.